the decline of Australia's red goshawk and its connection to habitat loss and human development. The red, the rarest predatory bird in Australia, has been disappearing from its habitat. The red goshawk, endemic to its biodiverse home in northern Australia, is notable due to its size, huge bright yellow claws, and long tail feathers, longer than its folded wings. Also called the radiated goshawk, red buzzard, or rufous-bellied buzzard, this raptor has been described as sneaky and solitary. It is a predatory bird that feeds on birds and small mammals like parrots, rainbow lorikeets, blue-winged kookaburras, flying foxes, and young hares. Like most large predatory birds, the red goshawk perches and stalks prey from the trees, or flies over the canopy surveying for its next meal. This predator is not a migratory bird, and instead stays in the northern areas of Australia containing savanna and forest biomes. At the current time, the only place to support breeding populations of the red goshawk is Cape York Peninsula in northern Queensland, according to a research study done by PhD candidate Chris McColl. In this study, he created a graphic that shows all of the original land occupied by red goshawks, color-coded based on their status in that region. Green being a persisting population, yellow being a declining population, and red being extinct populations. Here it is seen populations previously recorded in New South Wales and the southern areas of Queensland are now extinct. Over 2/3 of its existing range contains extinct or drastically declining populations of red goshawks. 3 of the sustained breeding populations, however, reside in the top end, Kimberley, and Tiwi Island regions of northern Queensland. According to the IUCN Red List, or the International Union for Conservation of Nature Red List of Threatened Species, the red goshawk is endangered per criteria C2A.2. This criteria supports that when all or most of the mature individuals reside in one subpopulation, the species is considered endangered. It is estimated that there are 900 to 1,400 mature individuals living within these breeding populations at a given time, and these numbers continue to decline. One of the biggest reasons for the red goshawk's endangered status is habitat loss. Throughout New South Wales and Queensland, deforestation and land clearing acts degrade habitats for populations trying to settle there. The tropical savanna areas are at increased risk for extinction or already harbor extinct populations. This cleared land is being used for mining resources, lumbering, and planting crops. Huge volumes of deforestation are also causing severe habitat fragmentation. Habitat fragmentation has many negative effects, including decreased biodiversity, increased competition for food and other resources, and a higher threat of extinction for smaller populations. According to author Corey Bradshaw from the Journal of Plant Ecology, Australia has a deep history of deforestation and non-sustainable forest and land usage, despite the small ratio of human population to land area. Bradshaw studied and compiled the rates of forest loss in Australia, including the areas the red goshawk has resided in. Australia's forest loss adds up to about 40%, yet the remaining forests are highly fragmented. Much of this deforestation and fragmentation dates back to the 18th and 19th centuries, at the height of European settlements. The most recent deforestation and clearing efforts have been seen in our area of interest, the forest areas of northern Australia. Without proper legal protection and sustainability efforts, invasive species, deforestation, and land clearing threaten the long-standing and admired endemism of the Australian wild. As seen in the figure, the proportion of forest lands has decreased by 11.5% as colonization progressed. New South Wales was one of the first settled areas, resulting in a current 33% reduction in native forest land. In Queensland, however, most of the environmental damage has been done in the last 60 years. Queensland arbors a majority of the expanding Australian cattle industry, contributing to agricultural clearing and spread of invasive weeds by cattle excrement. Crowned a deforestation hotspot in 2005, Queensland has cleared more than 1.2 million hectares of native vegetation, which has only increased in the past 18 years. Bradshaw documented that compared to the 80% forest coverage pre-European settlement, Queensland now contains approximately 30% native forest. Of this 30%, much is fragmented and low quality, contributing to a loss of biodiversity and endemism in Australia's wild. Another risk to red goshawk populations is the invasive weed gamba grass. Gamba grass was brought to northern Australia's agricultural regions to be tested as pasture terrain for livestock. Livestock aids in the spread of this invasive weed as well. When so abundantly available, the goshawk will use gamba grass as nesting material. This grass can become dry and extremely flammable. In combination with rising global temperatures causing a prolonged dry season, fire spreads to the gamba grass constructed nest and burns, killing the eggs or chicks that reside within. The decline and possible loss of the species is being caused by increased deforestation due directly to human use of the land. Human development, the increased need for agricultural land, and the history of colonization has led to deforestation. The deforestation then leads to habitat fragmentation, loss of endemism and biodiversity, and increased risk of invasives. But the main root of the problem is human exploitation of the land, specifically by the arrival of Europeans and how that history has shaped the land use today. The Nature Conservancy of Australia states that the first European people arrived in Australia in 1788, where there were up to 700,000 indigenous peoples already living off the land. Europeans began unjustly taking the land, and by 1900 the population of indigenous peoples was at 93,000. In addition to the unjust taking and treatment, they also brought new ways to exploit the land. They brought invasive plants and new diseases, and they started the clearing of land for development, agriculture, and mining. These practices are still in place today because of the cultural changes forced on Australia by the colonizers, and they continue to negatively harm the environment and native species, such as the red goshawk. One possible solution for protecting Australia's environment and an important step towards social justice relating to land use in Australia would be restoring land and management rights back to the Indigenous communities. This would also mean bringing back and highlighting the traditional knowledge and environmental practices that were suppressed during colonization. Reconnecting Indigenous communities back to their land and bringing them to the table to environmental decisions would lead to improved environmental health and could create more just and equitable decisions. In addition to promoting the knowledge of Indigenous communities, other solutions for protecting Australia's natural habitats, and therefore the red goshawk, are placing restrictions on land use and management and creating habitat sanctuaries. The Australian Wildlife Conservancy is currently working to implement land management practices that protect habitat areas such as nesting trees for the red goshawk. The red goshawk's habitat is in danger due to human use of the land, but the fight is not over. So many people who are passionate about the environment and about the protection of native species are working to do research about and implement change for the red goshawk. We know of solutions and methods to decrease the effects of habitat degradation, and we know what practices to change for protection of the goshawk. So we will continue this fight for the red goshawk to ensure its presence for generations to come.